Hello, my name is Derrick Coston, and here at StormWind Studios, I'm the instructor for ISC Squared's Sscp and CISSP certification courses or prep courses. The Sscp, which is the System Security Certified Professional course, and the CISSP, the Certified Information System Security Professional course, are very unique courses, but a question that has been asked to me on more than one occasion. I felt I wanted to try to address and take a few moments to address something that just keeps coming up, and that's the comparison between CompTIA's Security Plus certification and how do they compare between the two tracks and the two companies that are organizations that actually present the exam. I want to show you over it. I want to just show you a little bit more about these two exams and the differences, and where you can actually take the benefit of both. The good news is, here at StormWind Studios, we teach all the courses, but there is a difference between these exams, and I wanted to really make sure we covered those and to help you when you're making your career decision on where you stand in your career on which certification you may want to consider, which one you may want to start with first if you have experience, and which one you want to go if you have more advanced skills. So in the order that I normally would address these is, if you're first coming into, let's say you have a Net Plus, an A Plus type of certification, then I would recommend that you're coming into cybersecurity for the very first time, then I recommend jumping into CompTIA's Security Plus certification. Because with that, you're going to learn some of the key concepts of what you want to do, especially becoming an entry-level security professional. You're going to be locking down routers, firewalls in your role. You're going to be taking the skills you've learned from your network administration, your Net Plus, and from your A Plus skills, and you're going to be applying the more security controls into those actual devices, and actually managing your network differently from a security perspective. So things you're going to learn is about different attack vectors, threats, vulnerabilities, technologies and tools, the architecture, identity access management, and they go through and they cover even a high-level version of risk management and cryptography. Then they have a more of advanced class that they can go through, which actually then goes back and again takes a little bit further about the different attack vectors, the architecture and design, the implementation, the operations, incident response, and they cover I call it the entry level from that perspective of governance, risk, and compliance. Now, when I look at it from an Sscp perspective, it's a slightly different, and it's more of an advanced certification. And the reason I call it more of an advanced, again, is for somebody who has been maybe doing the role of a Security Plus the first time in their industry, and they have at least 1 year experience. Because to take this exam, you have to have at least 1 year of experience to be able to even sit for the exam, and you have to have experience in one of the 7 domains in that role for at least that year. So when you look at what you have to do for the actual Sscp certification, you would see things such as security operations and administration, access controls, risk identification, monitoring, and analysis, the incident response and recovery, cryptography, network and communication security, and systems and application security. Now, the one thing about what ISC Squared has done, which is different of what the CompTIA has done in their course, is the ISC Squared is done it more from a business-oriented perspective. It's a great starting point again for both of them are great entry-level positions, but when you're learning it from the business perspective, that what ISC Squared has recently done is they've aligned and partnered with Nist, the National Institutes of Standards and Technology. And what Nist has done recently is they've gone back and they've prepared what is known as the Nist Risk Management Framework. And as a very industry-recognized framework that actually has a lot of processes in place to talk about how you talk about categorizing the system, selecting your security controls, implementing your controls, assessing your controls, authorizing controls, and putting monitor in place, where you're also doing initiate, design, implementation, and operation and maintenance. And that risk management framework really goes a lot into the way ISC Squared has not only started their Sscp from an entry level into their actual CISSP certification, which takes the Sscp into more of advanced from a management perspective. So what they've done is they've taken, when you're an entry level, when you're just coming into security, you got to learn how to secure these devices. You got to learn the basics of information in cybersecurity, and that's great. But that's not the applications when you're talking about true risk management. And when you're taking a risk management perspective and taking the same categories, what you're doing is you're creating a new path that's going to help you in a more leadership role. So again, they both go great hand in hand, but when you start applying it together, what it allows you to do is when you bridge that gap. So what I also talk about, the things what I show inside both of the courses, when you put it all together, for example, ISC Squared has really got a strong emphasis on confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And when you're talking about how the true risk management process works, is you're going to start out with the assets. And when you go in your assets, you go into assets. You got to then identify the risk to those assets. You got to apply the protections because all those are based upon the CIA. Then by applying those risk management concepts, you're then going to go into how do you maintain those controls? How do you identify? How do you assess? How do you control? How do you mitigate those controls? Then you're going to have a risk management category that's going to help you go back and put controls in place that's going to allow you to then ensure that now you can monitor those controls. And in the event something happens, you're going to feed right into your incident management and also into your business disaster recovery in the event that you cannot resolve it in your incident management phase. Additionally, on top of that, then you need to have the security awareness and the ongoing process that goes round and round. So what you've done is the way the flow works by taking the Security Plus, you're learning the skills of what you need to be a network administrator. You need to identify things as being, you're just starting out learning how to protect the networks. And again, when you look at what the domains consist of, those are great. What are the attack vectors that you need to have coming into the, cybersecurity from all the devices that you've protected. But when you're really, once you have those skills down, well, somebody's got to manage it. Somebody's got to understand, okay, well, when do we apply certain controls? And that's where the risk management becomes very handy. Because if, everything now in cybersecurity is based on risk. We don't have absolute security. So if you don't understand risk management, then it's going to be harder. And that's why, again, you got to have the basic skills of security. Then we can implement and show you how to take those skills and put it from a management perspective, from a risk perspective. Then once you've got those skills and you got 4 years of experience or 4 to 5 years of experience as a Sscp, now you're ready to go into the senior management positions as a CISSP. Now, the good news is about how the flow works is the things that you've learned from, you see security operations and administration. We now also cover that also here, but we also have it where it's individually split because there's a lot of things that deal with security operations that's a lot more complex than you are when you are doing it from an entry level down to where you're actually managing, where you're speaking, where you might be the CISO or the CIO in that role. You still got to understand the basics in those positions about how those folks down at the Security Plus level are managing the networks, as well as those who are overseeing those folks in the Security Plus role. That's where your SSCP comes in, which now you have the overall total picture. They all have a different functionality, but again, I think that if you follow that process there, again, if you're coming in without that experience, then again, I recommend you to start out as a Security Plus. But then if you do have at least 1 year experience, and again, you got to have that experience within the domain. So you got to have, again, the security operations, the access control, you've done risk management, incident management, cryptography, as long as you have that. Now, CompTIA, you do not have to have any experience and you don't have a prerequisite. It's recommended you have at least Net Plus, but you don't have to have that experience to come in, whereas inside the SSCP, you do have to have that working experience. So overall, they don't match one for each other based on the research we've done and made the comparisons. But the one thing that when you look at what ISC Squared has done also is they've taken their exam and they've making it more where you have to do critical thinking. So not only do they give you the concepts, now you got to find out what is the best answer. You got to take all the knowledge you know from a Security Plus perspective and say, now when I look at it from a risk, what is the one that's going to give me the greatest risk to the organization, and which one's going to give me, when I implement controls that I'm going to put in place, that's going to help me mitigate that risk appropriately. So it's good that you know the attack vectors because you can't do risk without understanding those attack vectors. So again, we don't really focus on those technical controls. We focus it on a management perspective in the SSCP, and it leads into the actual CISSP. And that's really what sets the difference there. So again, when you go for your SSCP, you're going to get the message you're ready to move into your career from more to a leadership perspective. So you're going from technical, from Net Plus to Security Plus from a technical perspective, and you're transitioning from that technical into a leadership to the SSCP to where you're actually the leader in the CISSP. So hopefully they give you a good feel or a good understanding about where the differences are those exams. Again, if you have any problems or questions about that, reach out to us because we teach all 3 courses. And again, we think our courses, we feel the courses are very good, all 3 of them. And again, we think they're going to help you depending on where you are in your career. So if you have any questions, reach out to me or any of our members of our team, and we'll love to help you and help you make the right career path that you might need to be, and where you might want to be when it comes to your certifications that you might need to move your career up to the next level. All right, thank you for that time, and I hope to see you in one of our classes.